My name is Myka Kennedy-Stevens. I am the Associate Professor of Theological Bibliography at Lancaster Theological Seminary Library. And my presentation this morning is about, it's called Crafting a Koha-Informed Vision. This is integrated library planning with gleanings from reports. And I want to also start off by saying I'm trying something new this morning with Prezi Video, where you can see the slides next to me, which depending on what type of screen you're using, you may not be able to read the text all of that well. But I want to assure you that my slides are going to be available on the Koha-US website. They are also currently available on my blog. And you'll get that address at the end of the presentation. So to give you an overview of what I'll be talking about this morning, I'm going to give you a very, very quick snippet of what integrated library planning is. And then the meat of this presentation is going to be looking at the Koha reports that we use at Lancaster Theological Seminary Library as part of our monthly review cycle. We'll be looking particularly at reports on our acquisitions, deaccessions, cataloging, and circulation. And then I'll be concluding with just a few comments about if you're interested in trying to adopt some of these integrated library planning processes, how you might think about using report data to inform your library's mission and vision. So, starting us off, what on earth is integrated library planning? You might be asking yourself. This is not something you've probably heard of unless you've talked to me extensively about what I do and what my current research is. Integrated library planning is a new model for strategic and dynamic planning, management, and assessment that's tailored to libraries. This is something that I developed at Lancaster Theological Seminary Library. It's the topic of a book that I'm working on that should be out next fall. And it's inspired by integrated business planning. So for those of you who might have more knowledge of the business sector, it's very similar to that, but tailored for libraries. And what it does is it combines all library functions and strategic visioning under a single unified plan and process. And that process includes monthly assessment and evaluation of what's going on in the library. And planning is mapped onto a rolling horizon. So it doesn't have a fixed time period. You're constantly moving forward on this rolling horizon and making adjustments when they're needed, not necessarily at the end of a 3-year or 5-year strategic plan. So the monthly review, that monthly review cycle, and then the product of that cycle is actually a report. This is really the key of integrated library planning and those practices that I've developed at Lancaster Theological Seminary. So the monthly review report includes dashboards for each operational area of the library. These dashboards have the actions that are taken toward achieving our strategic outcomes, along with assessment of our progress toward our strategic outcomes. And then we've got a Gantt chart with the planning horizon so that we can see workload and the balance of how everything's falling on that planning horizon for our current and future strategic outcomes. The monthly review report also includes a financial summary so that we always know what's going on with the library's budget. It has a section of operational data, which is the quantitative data that we get from reports, not just reports from Koha, but also reports from Google Analytics, database vendors, those types are authentication provider, those types of quantitative statistical data. Then we also have a section that's our information behavior analysis. This is our qualitative research that we're constantly engaged in, observing the information behavior of our patrons and surveying their use of the library, their satisfaction with the library, etc. And then we always also include our mission, vision, goals, and outcomes. And that is because those are always open in an integrated library plan. Those are always open to revision and update and modification. So we like to keep those up front and always in front of us, so that what we're learning from the quantitative and qualitative data, as well as how we are progressing toward our strategic outcomes, that can all inform potential changes to mission and vision if we're noticing new trends or emerging needs. So at this point, so that's integrated library planning in a nutshell, and I'd like to kind of shift into showing you a little bit, a glimpse into these reports that we do and how our data shows up in these reports. So this is one page from our report. This is our acquisitions and weeding data. I include these on the same page of the report. I've got the acquisitions information highlighted here. That's what I'd like to focus on first. So we track what we're ordering. So this is a chart of the titles ordered, and the report that the data that goes into this report or chart comes from the orders in date range. I'll make this a little bit bigger since now you're looking at a bunch of code. Orders in date range. This is actually a revision of a report that we found in the Koha report library. I did a little bit of digging and found that there are also several variations of this report in Mana. So if you're getting your reports from Mana now, you should be able to find something similar to this there. And basically it gives you a list of the titles, and we take from a date range that we specify, and I take the count of those titles and put it in that bar chart for the monthly review. And what I'm looking for is that we are ordering consistently. If there are any variations, periods where we might have spikes or low points where we're not ordering as much or we're ordering too much, I like to know that, because that can kind of clue me in of staff workload, or if there's something else going on in the library that's impacting our ability to order consistently or at a consistent rate. Another thing that we find helpful is to look at our acquisitions, our new acquisitions by subject area. So this is a chart that takes a look at all of the new acquisitions based on date accessioned, and breaks them down by call number. And then I've put them in the chart in order from greatest to least, so that we can see kind of what are the most popular subject areas that we're ordering in. So here's that report, what that looks like. This is actually a report that I wrote. So unfortunately, it's not in the wiki yet, and it's not in Mana yet. But as I said, these slides are online. You can just copy paste the code from the slides if you want to adapt this for your library. Again, one thing I'd like to point out about this report, so it's selecting the call number. We use Library of Congress, and so it's selecting the first 3 characters of the call number. And so in Library of Congress, sometimes we have 1-letter classes. And so that means that it might treat B, which is usually general, like philosophy, and B, it will count B7 as something different from B9. So sometimes I have to manually add those together for 1-letter classes. but it doesn't happen that frequently, and it's something it's not that annoying. This report is written where you don't select a date range, but you select a year and month. And so it's going to pull date accessioned for the year and month that you've defined, and the call numbers for those items. So moving on to deaccessions, and also deaccessions are kind of wrapped up. I like to look at them in conjunction with acquisitions, but in the report, in how we collect our report data, it's the deaccessions plus our cataloging data, because the information comes from the same reports. So in our report, we have this the weeding, which is a count of how many deaccessions we've had, basically items deleted and bibs deleted. And then for our cataloging statistics, we do a chart of original and copy cataloging, so new items and new bibs. And then the cataloging modifications is kind of our maintenance, just to kind of track how much maintenance, recon, editing of records we do. So again, when I'm looking at these charts as part of my monthly review cycle, I'm looking for patterns of activity. So are there times, maybe perhaps, when we've got more time that we're working on our cataloging backlog? Or are there times when we're spending more time working on modifications to the catalog? Because knowing when those times are can help with planning out other strategic outcomes and anticipating when we might achieve certain outcomes if they're tied to cataloging activities or special projects like that. So these are the, so for those three charts, I have two reports that I use. This one is item records added and deleted in a time frame. So this one we use as is from the Koha report library, and it's also in Mana. So the add count for items goes into our cataloging chart, and the delete count goes into our weeding chart. And then the second report that we use is called bib records added, deleted in time frame. It's very similar to the item records report. It's also used as is from the Koha report library. It is also available in Mana. We take the add count and put it in our cataloging chart. We do our delete count in the weeding chart, and the modify count in the cataloging modifications chart. So moving on to circulation, we track our physical circulation, and this is checkouts, renewals, and local use. We find that we have a lot of folks who come in and use books, and then we ask that they leave them on the table so that we can scan them for local use and track who is looking at things but not checking them out. So there are two, just as there were two reports to go into three charts, this is two reports that go into one chart. The first one is checkouts and renewals in a date range. We revised this one slightly from the Koha Reports Library wiki, and there are also variations of it in Mana. It basically gives you a count of issues and renewals within the date range that you specify. So we use those as the counts for checkouts and renewals in that chart. Now, to get our local use count, we use this report, local use by shelving location. So we're able to see with this report, how much, what items are being pulled from reference, what people are using from course reserves, what people are using from the stacks, etc. This was an as-is report from the Koha report library. I did not find it in Mana, so there's an opportunity there, I suppose, to add it to Mana. And because it gives count by shelving location, we total the counts for the shelving locations that we're tracking and put those in our monthly review. The other thing that we like to look at is circulation behavior. So this is kind of tracking exactly what is circulating and who is using it. So we've got a few different charts here for that. This page from our report shows our circulation by patron type, as well as the top 5 subject areas that circulate. So it's really interesting looking at our circulation chart. It's a good point of comparison with the acquisitions chart. Are we acquiring in areas that people are asking for resources and using resources? And then the other chart that we put together is circulation behavior over time. So this looks at a 3-year period of circulation history, broken down in kind of our 5 major patron groupings: students, faculty, staff, alumni, visiting students and faculty, and community patrons. You can see the huge crash dip here in March of 2020, which is when we closed for COVID. I'm sure you all have similar looking charts from your own libraries. But again, this helps us look at, again, cyclical use, because we are an academic library. Our use does tend to ebb and flow with the academic calendar. So this helps us know kind of what's going on and who is using our resources when. So I have 2 reports that I look at for these. This one is the checkouts and renewal counts by call number. So this is the report that we use to get that top 5 subject lists, or top 5 subject areas that are being used. It's very similar to the one that we use for acquisitions. And then the next one is a report circulation by patron type. So this is what goes into that pie chart, as well as the 3-year line graph. This is a report that was actually written for us, and I did not find it in the Koha Reports Wiki or in Mana. So again, you can get it from the slide if you're interested in adapting it for your library. So in conclusion, I just want to say, if you're using, I think all of us use reports data. I just want to encourage you, I hope that you maybe think about reports data a little bit differently, or think about how to use it more holistically in crafting your library's mission, vision, and setting goals and outcomes for your library. So I have found it really important to interpretate the quantitative data that we get from our reports within the context of the library's mission, vision, goals, and strategic outcomes. And also kind of pairing it with this qualitative research that we do on information behavior and patron engagement. It's proven to be quite fruitful, and it really gives us a bigger picture of what's going on at the library, so that we can really strategically decide on kind of what programs we want to do, what improvements we want to make, and so forth. I always look for patterns and anomalies. I kind of approach all of this data as a researcher. I suppose I ask a lot of questions of my data. I kind of look at it, record it, and sit at it and say, why is this particular statistic looking the way it is? So asking those questions of your data, I think, is really important and can help you look at your library and look at what's going on in new ways. And then, of course, the big thing is that, as you're collecting these data and statistics on a regular basis, you're able to adjust your library operations as your as you need to, you can anticipate certain matters, you can plan proactively, and you can be more responsive and adaptive as your community's needs are changing. So that is all I have. And so again, my name is Myka. You can find me online at mission-information.org. And if you have any questions, I know we're right up at the 20-minute mark, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to hear them, or you can, there's a contact form and my social media links, everything is on the website. So if you go to mission-information.org, you can get in touch with me there.
And I see Ed walked up to the computer, so you have a question over there, Ed?
Just asking if anybody here has questions, and doesn't look like they do.
We did just get a question on the YouTube chat. What are you using for your dashboard?
So the whole report is developed as a PowerPoint slide deck. So it's not a very sophisticated dashboard. It's PowerPoint tables and charts.
All right, I'm seeing some thank yous and some good presentations in the chat. We'll give it just a few more seconds. There is a delay on the YouTube chat. Rebecca commented that your dashboards look great. So, so even if they're made in slides, they're great. It was a very interesting presentation for me too. I love data-driven decision-making, that sort of stuff. I love that you can pull that kind of stuff out of Koha and then any which way and use it to inform your decisions. So, and it's good to see how other people do it and compare to our own strategies. Someone is looking forward to your book.
I am too. I am too. It's in the final stages now, so fingers crossed it's going to be out next fall. ACRL Publications.
We will be looking for announcements.
Okay.
Lots of applause. All right, I think that's it
Right.
for the YouTube chat too. So thank you again, Myka.